You wake up with a knot in your chest. The world is still. The house is quiet. Nothing is wrong, and yet something inside you is screaming. You try to breathe it away, smile through it, distract your mind with routine. But beneath it all, that unease remains, subtle but relentless. And the worst part? You've been told this feeling is a flaw, a problem to fix, a weakness to suppress. But what if they're all wrong? What if anxiety isn't your enemy, but your guide? What if that tension in your body is not a malfunction, but a message? A deeper truth trying to wake you up in a world that desperately wants you asleep? Alan Watts once said that the search for security is itself insecurity. And today, we live in a society obsessed with control, yet drowning in fear. The harder we chase peace, the further it runs from us. In this video, we're not here to give you tips, hacks, or breathing tricks. We're here to show you something far more important, that your anxiety might be the most honest part of you. That it could be the soul's whisper in a world full of noise. Direct hit: if you've ever felt like no one understands what you're carrying, then this message is for you. Backhand index pointing right, stay with us. Hit that subscribe button now, because once you see what your anxiety truly is, you won't look at yourself the same way again. They told you it's a problem. That if you just tried harder, if you just thought more positively, if you just breathed more deeply, you'd be okay. You've tried. You've read the self-help books. You've meditated. You've journaled. You've smiled through the storm, and still, the storm remains. Because what if anxiety isn't a malfunction in your brain, but a message from your soul? We live in a culture that treats discomfort like a disease. Every uncomfortable emotion must be managed. Every ache must be numbed. Every flicker of fear must be silenced. But in that constant effort to fix ourselves, we miss the possibility that we were never broken to begin with. Anxiety is not a glitch in your system. It is the system screaming that something is off. It's not just a fear of what's coming. It's a rebellion against a life that feels out of alignment. You don't panic because everything is wrong. You panic because deep down, you know something should be different. You feel what others ignore. And yet, society has convinced you to be ashamed of this sensitivity. To wear a mask of calm when you're crumbling inside. To fear the fear itself. To spiral into guilt for not being effortlessly happy, effortlessly strong, effortlessly okay. But maybe the real problem isn't your anxiety. Maybe the real problem is a world that makes you feel insane for reacting to its insanity. Because when you step back and see clearly, it's not you that's sick. It's the culture of denial you were raised in. Anxiety, then, is not the enemy. It's the invitation. A sacred signal that something inside you refuses to go numb. And maybe, just maybe, that means you're more awake than you realize. Alan Watts once said something that sounds almost like a riddle: the desire for security and the feeling of insecurity are the same thing. And at first, it makes no sense. How can the thing we crave, security, be the very thing that keeps us afraid? But pause for a moment, and you'll see the trap. We spend our lives chasing control. We plan every step. We track every outcome. We obsess over tomorrow, prepare for worst-case scenarios, and try to protect ourselves from pain before it even arrives. But in that obsession with making life safe, we create the very instability we fear. Because the more we need things to be predictable, the more terrified we become when they're not. And here's the brutal truth Watts uncovered: life was never meant to be predictable. The universe doesn't hand out guarantees. It flows, shifts, evolves, just like you. But instead of dancing with that change, we resist it. We tighten our grip on plans, expectations, and illusions of control. We try to anchor ourselves in a river. And we call it security. This is why anxiety blooms in modern life. Not because something is broken inside of you, but because you're trying to live in a way that denies reality. You want peace, but you're building it on the foundation of fear. You want stability in a world that only offers motion. You want permanence in a body that changes every 7 years. Watts saw it clearly. We live like ghosts, haunted by the past, afraid of the future, never truly present in the now. And this, he said, is why we suffer. Not because life is cruel, but because we keep trying to outwit its nature. But what if we stopped fighting impermanence? What if, instead of chasing safety, we embraced the flow? Not with resignation, but with awareness, like a surfer riding the waves instead of trying to stop the ocean. Because maybe peace doesn't come from control. Maybe it comes from surrender. Imagine a zebra grazing peacefully in the savannah. Suddenly, a lion charges. In a split second, the zebra's body launches into emergency mode, heart racing, muscles tensing, adrenaline flooding. And then, just as quickly, the danger passes. The lion gives up. The zebra shakes off the fear, returns to grazing, and the body resets. Now compare that to you. You're lying in bed. No lion. No predator. Just a thought about your job, your relationship, your future, or something you said 3 years ago. And your body, it reacts like the lion is right in front of you. Your heart races. Your breathing shortens. Your muscles clench. Your stomach churns. You don't move, but you feel like you're running for your life. This is the tragedy Robert Sapolsky reveals in Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. We are biological creatures with ancient wiring, living in a world our bodies weren't built for. Our ancestors needed stress to survive. A threat meant run or die. And once the danger was gone, the body could rest. But your threats don't go away. They replay. They escalate. They loop endlessly in your mind. Our stress system, once a tool for survival, has become a prison. Because your body doesn't know the difference between a lion and a deadline. Between a predator and a breakup text. Between actual danger and imagined fear. It just reacts. And so, you live in a body that's constantly bracing for an impact that never comes. Day after day. Week after week. Until stress becomes your baseline. Until you forget what calm even feels like. And this chronic activation doesn't just make you feel bad, it makes you sick. Digestive issues. Hair loss. Low immunity. Burnout. Insomnia. Brain fog. Depression. You're not just tired, you're biologically overwhelmed. But the worst part? You blame yourself. You think you're weak. You think you just need more discipline, more control, more willpower. But the truth is, you are carrying a body evolved for jungle survival, while living in a jungle made of emails, social media, and unspoken fears. Sapolsky doesn't say this to scare you. He says it to free you. Because once you understand what your body is really doing, you can stop fighting yourself. You can stop thinking you're broken. You can begin to see that your anxiety is not a flaw, it's the echo of ancient instincts trying to make sense of a chaotic world. You're not malfunctioning. You're just a human, with a prehistoric brain trying to survive in the modern storm. Most people think anxiety is about the future, that it's rooted in what might happen next. But that's only part of the truth. Because when you look deeper, you realize, anxiety isn't just fear of the future. It's fear of what's already missing in the present. We live in a culture that is obsessed with doing, with becoming, with achieving. From the moment we wake up, we are pushed to optimize, improve, hustle. We chase purpose. We chase validation. We chase milestones. But beneath the busyness, something quieter stirs, a deep, gnawing sense that something isn't quite right. That's anxiety. Not a chemical imbalance, but a spiritual imbalance. A silent alarm ringing from a soul that hasn't been listened to in years. Alan Watts called this, the absurdity of trying to live as if life were predictable. And it's exactly what we're taught to do. We try to structure the chaos, tame the unknown, schedule every hour of our lives. We build routines and rules to protect ourselves from uncertainty. But nature doesn't obey routines. Life doesn't follow rules. And the more we try to armor ourselves with control, the more brittle we become. Watts warned that our obsession with control is rooted in a refusal to face impermanence. Everything changes. Everything ends. Every relationship, every plan, every identity, all of it is in motion. And yet we cling to the illusion of stability, to the fantasy of forever, to the lie that if we do everything right, nothing will ever fall apart. But here's the truth most people won't say aloud: everything falls apart. That's the nature of life. Anxiety is what happens when we pretend it doesn't. You may think your anxiety is about that meeting, or that text, or that uncertain future. But more often, it's about a deeper tension, the split between who you really are and who you're pretending to be to survive. The internal ache that comes from living in ways that contradict your truth. Because in trying so hard to seem okay, you abandoned what would actually make you feel okay. Authenticity, alignment, peace in the present. We fear silence, so we fill it with noise. We fear stillness, so we stay busy. We fear death, so we cling to every illusion of permanence. We build identities out of titles, relationships, social media profiles, and routines, but those aren't us. They're costumes we wear to feel safe in a world we don't understand. And every time reality cracks that mask, anxiety surges, not because we're weak, but because deep down, we're tired of pretending. What explains that suffering begins when we resist what is. When we deny the flow of life and try to bottle the river. We fear the void, so we fill it with goals. But the more we fill, the more hollow it feels. Because we're not meant to conquer life. We're meant to experience it. And yet, there's hope in this. Because if anxiety is a signal that something is out of sync, then maybe it's not here to destroy you. Maybe it's here to awaken you. Maybe it's the soul's way of saying, stop running. Come back. You've drifted too far from your center. And maybe the most courageous thing you can do is not fight the anxiety, not numb it, not bury it, but listen to it. Let it be the mirror that reflects the life you've been avoiding. Let it show you the truth beneath the performance. Because that discomfort you feel, it might be the first real feeling you've had in a long time. And that, friend, is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your return. From the moment we're born, we are programmed to fear chaos. We are taught that uncertainty is the enemy, that vulnerability is weakness, and that the good life is the one with a plan. So we build our identities like we build skyscrapers, floor by floor, achievement by achievement, tightly structured, meticulously controlled. But the higher we climb, the more unstable we feel. Because what no one tells you is that the modern world was built on fear. Fear disguised as ambition, as discipline, as success. Alan Watts called this the era of insecurity disguised as progress. And it's painfully accurate. We idolize productivity, glorify schedules, and worship at the altar of control. But beneath all that structure is a deep existential dread that if we stop moving, if we stop improving, if we stop pretending, everything might collapse. And that's the trap. We're told to have goals, to hustle, to always be striving, not because life demands it, but because society demands that we never sit still long enough to feel. And the cost of that hyperfunctioning, anxiety, disconnection, quiet misery. We live in a paradox. The more freedom we have, the more choices overwhelm us. The more knowledge we gain, the more questions haunt us. The more we try to master life, the more we feel like we're losing control. Because we were never meant to be machines. We were meant to feel. Yet in this world, feelings are inconvenient. So we suppress. We shrink. We show up smiling even when we're shattered. We chase solutions, techniques, hacks, as if peace were just a checklist away. We fill our lives with routines so rigid they become cages. We consume content that promises transformation in 5 steps. We follow gurus who offer peace in exchange for obedience. But all of it, is a distraction. A polished distraction from the real truth, that we're terrified of letting go. We cling because control gives us the illusion of safety. But anxiety is the body's rebellion against that illusion. It's what happens when the soul knows you're living a lie, even if you don't admit it out loud. And here's the most painful irony. The harder you try to hold it all together, the more it falls apart. Robert Sapolsky's research echoes this from the biological side. Our stress systems were never meant to be permanent. They were designed for sprints, not marathons. But our society demands we sprint forever, emotionally, mentally, physically. The result? A body in constant war with itself. A mind trying to outthink life. A soul screaming to be felt. And still, we blame ourselves. We think anxiety means we're not strong enough. That if we just tried harder, we'd be normal. But maybe anxiety doesn't mean you're broken. Maybe it means you're paying attention. Because when the world is insane, sensitivity is sanity. And that means your anxiety isn't something to be conquered. It's something to be heard, a sacred signal from the deepest part of you, saying, something isn't right here. Please, listen. What if your anxiety isn't trying to hurt you, but to speak to you? We've spent so long trying to shut it down, the panic, the racing thoughts, the tension in our chest, that we've forgotten something essential. All of it might be a form of communication. A language not of words, but of sensations. A language your body and soul have been using for years, hoping you'd finally listen. Anxiety isn't random. It rises in moments when your internal reality no longer aligns with your external life. It flares up in places where your truth has been buried. It whispers or screams when you've worn the mask for too long, played the role too perfectly, and lost yourself in the performance. And when you ignore it, it gets louder, more persistent. Not to punish you, but because it can't allow you to keep betraying yourself silently. Alan Watts said, "To be insecure is to be alive." That's not a flaw. That's a compass. The friction you feel isn't weakness. It's resistance between the person you've become and the person you were always meant to be. And that friction hurts, but it also reveals. Because anxiety is clarity in disguise. It's what rises when you try to act strong while falling apart inside. When you smile through a relationship that doesn't nourish you. When you chase goals that don't feel like yours. When your life looks perfect on paper, but your soul is starving. Robert Sapolsky supports this biologically. Stress is intelligent. It's adaptive. It's meant to wake you up. But when that alarm rings and you keep hitting snooze, eventually, your body crashes. Not because you're weak, but because you've ignored the only language it knows to use. So what if, instead of silencing anxiety, you turned toward it with curiosity? What if you sat in stillness and asked, "What are you trying to tell me? What part of me have I abandoned? What truth have I ignored? What needs to be grieved, changed, healed, reclaimed?" Because in that question lies the shift, from enemy to ally, from fear to insight. This is not about romanticizing pain or glorifying struggle. It's about recognizing that symptoms have roots, and that beneath every wave of anxiety, there's often a deeper voice trying to speak. When you honor that voice, you don't just calm the mind, you begin to heal the self. So the next time anxiety rises, don't reach for distraction. Don't wage war on your own body. Pause. Breathe. Observe. Let the message come through. Because anxiety, when seen clearly, is not a curse. It's a compass, pointing you home. Understanding anxiety is one thing. Living differently because of that understanding, that's where the work begins. It's tempting to stay in the mind, to keep analyzing, reading, philosophizing, to turn awareness into another mental loop. But anxiety doesn't truly dissolve through thoughts alone, because it doesn't live there. It lives in the body. To heal, we must descend. We must return from the heights of overthinking to the simple truth of presence, to the texture of breath, to the feeling of your feet on the floor, to the quiet awareness that you are here. Right now. Not in a future you can't predict. Not in a past you can't rewrite. Here. Alan Watts said, "The secret of life is to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now." And he didn't say this as a poetic suggestion. He meant it as a call to action, to presence, to embodiment. Because presence is not an abstract idea, it's a practice. It's a muscle you rebuild, moment by moment, breath by breath. And your body, the very place where anxiety lives, can also be the place where it softens. This is where Robert Sapolsky re-enters the conversation. He reminds us that your nervous system can be trained. That practices like deep breathing, moving slowly, expressing your emotions, resting, aren't spiritual fluff. They're biological medicine. They shift hormones, soothe cortisol, recalibrate your stress response. Try this, slow your breath and extend the exhale. It's simple, but powerful. That long out-breath tells your body, the threat is gone. You're safe now. And when you do that, again and again, you begin to retrain the alarm system. You stop bracing for a crash that isn't coming. But it's not just about breath work. Radical presence is about learning to stay with whatever is, without judging it, without running from it. Even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it is. When anxiety arises like a wave, don't fight it. Don't drown in it. Just float. Watch. Feel. Let it rise. Let it fall. Trust that you can be with it, not as its victim, but as its witness. And in that witnessing, something extraordinary happens. You begin to realize that you are not your anxiety. You are the presence that holds it. This isn't a quick fix. It's not a magic bullet. It's the slow, sacred work of returning to yourself, to your breath, to your aliveness. Every time you resist the urge to fix the future and instead show up fully for this moment, you are healing. Because anxiety cannot survive in the now. It only lives in the future you're afraid of, or the past you're still running from. And so, presence becomes your quiet revolution. Your anchor. Your medicine. Your way back home. So now you've seen it from every side. The mind, the body, the world, the soul. You've seen how anxiety isn't random, isn't weakness, isn't brokenness. You've seen that it's intelligent. That it belongs. That it's trying to show you something essential. Your life is speaking to you. Will you answer? This is the moment where everything shifts. Because if anxiety has roots in biology, and it does, if anxiety is shaped by society, and it is, if anxiety mirrors your inner truth, and it always will, then maybe anxiety isn't an obstacle to your awakening. Maybe it is your awakening. This is what Alan Watts meant when he said we try to fix the world outside without healing what's inside. We try to change our routines, our jobs, our relationships, while the wound within remains untouched. But when you turn inward with honesty, not to judge, but to listen, you find something sacred hiding beneath the chaos. And it sounds like this. I want to come home to myself. I want to live in alignment with who I really am. I want to stop performing and start being. That voice is not your anxiety. That voice is your clarity. Robert Sapolsky gave us the biological foundation. The body reacts to imagined fears the same way it does to real threats. But the deeper truth is this. The body reacts because it cares. Because it's trying to protect you from a life that feels misaligned. And the mind just tries to keep up. Anxiety, then, becomes your soul's alarm bell. Not to scare you, but to wake you. To shake you out of unconscious living. To disrupt the loop. To call you out of survival mode and into presence. Into the raw, unpolished, magnificent truth of being alive. But here's the final paradox. Freedom doesn't come from eliminating anxiety. It comes from no longer fearing it. When anxiety is no longer the enemy, it becomes the teacher. When discomfort is no longer rejected, it becomes a guide. When the noise inside is no longer silenced, it becomes a song, strange, yes, but beautifully your own. This is the initiation. Not into some perfect version of yourself, but into your real self. The one that feels. The one that struggles. The one that listens. The one that lives in this breath, this moment, this heartbeat. And it's not easy. It's not fast. But it is true. And it is yours. So if you felt broken, know this. You are not broken. You are becoming.